morning. Black History Conversations again, and today we're going to be talking with Garrick Prayogg about the work he's doing with the Windrush Generations, and we're going to have other colleagues here joining in very much as well on that. But I just wanted to introduce ourselves here with my PowerPoint. So here we are, and we've got other good colleagues with us. So this new look PowerPoint indicates that we're going to have an update about our new Black History Conversations website, and you'll understand more about that as we go on. But in Australia, the country, when an activity is being undertaken, is acknowledged. Country is acknowledged, not county, country, sorry about the spelling, with a statement of respect. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I am today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I've put a few examples there of the sorts of ways that other people, when they're doing, either they've got to sign up in a school or in a shopping centre or whatever, or on the television, then you get these indications. So that respect is really, really important. Now, on Sunday, in Belgrave, which is a little town near here, we're going to have the Belgrave Survival Day. The big word for this time is always. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. So I'm on the committee for this, so I'm just explaining to you, and I'm really proud to have been able to support. So we've got a good range of artists who are going to perform, including the Juru dancers. But because I do an acknowledgement to country, and again I put county here, we'll have a welcome to country with a smoking ceremony. Now, the smoking ceremony can only be done by an Aboriginal person who welcomes you to their country. And it also involves a smoking ceremony. So as we're still in the fire danger season here, we have to have special permission from the authorities to be able to do that welcome to country. Right, okay, so also a bit sad today. I was going to tell you about the upcoming episode of the Hairy Bikers Go West, where Maggie, some of you will remember from her programme a little, she did some time ago for us on Black History Conversations. Sadly, Dave Myers has passed, but the upcoming episode, which they filmed in September, features Maggie, a Nigerian kitchen goddess whose spicy West African dishes are popular in the area. That's Pennygroes in Gwynedd. So if you are around, then watch that TV programme. But sad to hear that Dave's passed. So respect there. Okay, last week we had a week break so that we could work on the new website, which I'll tell you about later. But the week before that, Professor Sherto Gill will be joined us, and she's going to come back again to talk more about her work and also bring one of her students to join us. So that'll be in a couple of weeks' time, we think. Right, but now we're going to go over to you, Garrick, with Justice for Windrush Generations. I've just done a PowerPoint just to say about the Liverpool Advocates of Windrush. If you want me to show that again, I can. Your work that you do bi-weekly, and the website Justice for Windrush Generations, and also the new Age Concern, Age UK thing, that information, that report that June Elizabeth Whitesmith Gully shared with me. So over to you then, Garrick.
Excuse me,
Catch us up with
Liz.
what's going on.
Excuse me, Liz. Did you want to give acknowledgement to the Caribbean and the Black people?
I usually do that. I haven't got it on my screen at the moment.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Over to you, Garrick, then.
Thank you very much, Liz, for going through this this topic. So for everyone on the call today, we're going to be just talking around Windrush. And in order to understand Windrush, I think we need to just give a little bit of background as to how Windrush came about and the issues that is still impacting on many people, first, second, third, fourth generation. So I think the conversation needs to start with 1948, with the arrival of the first generation of Windrush. And we always go back to that date because often when we have conversation around Windrush, not everybody agree or classify themselves as part of Windrush. It tends to be more understandable across the Caribbean countries and less so with other countries. So 1948, the arrival of the first generation Empire Windrush. June 21st, spent the night on the ship because of political issues. And then on the 22nd embarked. And so 22nd of June, as we know it, is Windrush Day, annual celebration. And of course, what caused Windrush has been successful piece of legislation, immigration legislation. So if I can give you the first one. So back in 1908, they had what they call the Alien Act. That's prior to Windrush. But 1948 is the first piece of legislation that would have an impact on the Windrush generation. Then after 1948, we had what is known as the 1962 Commonwealth Act. And then we had a further piece of legislation, 1968, some additional rules in the Commonwealth Act. And 1971, enacted in 1973, has been the main piece of legislation that has affected Windrush generation. We also have subsequent pieces of legislation, 1988. And you cannot have the conversation about Windrush unless you understand those pieces of legislation that was specifically designed to control immigration, but more importantly, to control Black and brown people. That's the reality. And so most of us knew nothing about Windrush until 2018, when the scandal broke, almost 6 years ago. And in 2018, we all saw television programs. We saw David Lammy in Parliament. We saw Theresa May making an apology. And the conversation started about Windrush. At the start of the scandal, and it was mentioned yesterday in Baroness Benjamin, not to refer it as Windrush scandal. We've always been saying it's the Home Office scandal because they're the one that created it. So let's change the narratives, the Home Office scandal. So 2018, when the scandal broke, an article appeared in The Guardian. It estimated that up to 50,000 people would be affected by Windrush. And in some way, that was a conservative number. However, what has happened since 2018, where we were expecting many thousands of people to come forward and to rectify their status or to seek compensation. So the Windrush compensation scheme took a while to design and to be implemented, and was launched in 2019. And the scheme offers rectification of your status, one. Two, if you've been impacted, that you could not prove your right to be in the UK, you can then seek compensation through the compensation scheme. We always say to people, check your status first before you think about anything else. If you get that right, then it will follow if you've been impacted and you suffer loss. So that's how the scheme was designed. Of course, what we have seen, that the scheme doesn't come with any legal aid to assist individual. The Home Office expect individual to troll their way through pages of guidance and make an application. And it is true, when I speak to different academic people with PhD, they find the whole process actually extremely difficult to understand and to follow. And so the Home Office is asking lay people to do this. Yeah? So clearly, what we've seen is that we have a scheme and people are expected to do it themselves, a DIY scheme maybe. Yeah? And what has happened over the last 3 or 4 years, different organizations have come forward to offer support to individual. And although we have a number of organizations offering support, there is still not enough. So people are still having difficulty finding somebody to assist them and help them with the application process. And of course, you need to understand that the first generation are now in their 80s and 90s. And second generation, like myself, were in our 60s and 70s. Then we have third and fourth generation. It's a continuation. And I always say to people that even though you're born in the UK, it doesn't mean that you have the right to be here. You have to find the evidence and prove you have the right. That's what the Home Office is asking people to do, right? If you say that you should be here, well, prove it, yeah? And so that is really the purpose of the compensation scheme and status. So what has happened since 2019 is that we have a scheme that was designed to right the wrongs, but a scheme that has not been addressing the issues. And in particular, most of us who have had conversation with other people would know that the scheme take a long time to process, but also the scheme doesn't actually do what it's supposed to do, as to put the person back in the position that they would have been prior to any issue. And so when we have a conversation about the scheme, people say, well, you know, this happened to me, that happened to me. But when I put my application in, I only get this bit, I only get that. Okay? So here we have a compensation scheme that's been administered by the Home Office. The current government-owned select committee confirm that the scheme that we have is not fit for purpose. And that was brought out yesterday also in Baroness Benjamin session. Not fit for purpose, yet we still have it. It is true, over the last couple of years, there has been a little bit of tweaking and improvement to the scheme, but still, there are still major issues with the scheme. And all the organization, campaigning organization, and victims will agree that the scheme should be removed from the Home Office and sit somewhere else independent. So many organizations been campaigning for independent scheme out of the Home Office. And there's a good reason why that should be the case. And there was a illustration yesterday, when you get a chance to look at the video, which is quite a long debate in the Lords, when they tried to break down into little pieces so we understand. If somebody did you wrong, you have to then go back to that person and plead with that person who done you wrong. And it's a similar situation with the police. You know, and we've seen that with women who've been victim of police brutality, police rape, etc. And what they're asking you to do is to complain to the police service. And the police service will investigate themselves. Of course, you know, that is not justice. So here we have this scheme administered by government, Home Office, using the same pieces of legislation that has put the Windrush generation in the position that they find themselves in. Does that make sense? Okay.
No.
And of course, the other issue is, if the scheme was legal aided, then the scheme would be much easier to manage. An individual would get a better access to justice. So they deliberately avoid legal aid, the scheme. However, when we compare this scheme to other scheme, and there has been some comparison, currently what Justice for Windrush Generation is doing in our series of rallies starting on the 20th of March is that we now have put the two schemes, the Post Office Horizon scandal and Windrush scandal, together, and says there's a different approach that the government is using for the Post Office scandal. It's a different approach the government is using over contaminated blood. Okay? And so when you start to look and make that comparison to the different scheme, what we see and what was again said in the House yesterday is that the way that Windrush people have been dealt with by the government, it's a national shame and disgrace. The words were used. It is a national shame. However, they were allowed to continue doing this. So here we are in 2024, still with the current scheme, still sitting in the Home Office. And in terms of people, you know, getting their compensation rectification quickly, we're told that it has come down the timeline from 18 months to 4 months. That was mentioned yesterday. And it was asked by the minister, can you confirm if this is the case? From 18 months to get your claim dealt with within 4 months. And it's a lie. It is not true. But this is what they're saying, and it was challenged in the House yesterday, to the minister. So we're told that we've given figures, we've given fact sheet from the Home Office to say, okay, in the last quarter, this is what we've done. This is the number of people who have applied to the scheme, and this is the number of payment that is being made. When we look at the data and the figures that the Home Office produce, what we see, the greatest number of rectification comes from the EU nation after Brexit, 4,600 and something. Yeah. So Windrush compensation scheme was used to rectify EU status, and the EU numbers are greater than the Jamaican numbers and any other number. And what we see in the scheme is that what the Home Office actually put out in the public domain, it's not accurate. Mm. And when you get a chance to listen to Baroness Benjamin going through and the different contributors in the Lords yesterday, and she presented some factual information and challenged the minister on their data and information. It was also mentioned that the new Windrush overline train that we all saw a week or so ago. I didn't know this until yesterday, that it doesn't stop in Brixton. Yes, it passed Brixton, but it doesn't stop in Brixton. Brixton is Lambeth. Lambeth is where the first generation arrived in Clapham. Yeah. Windrush Square is where we have our vigil annually, but it doesn't stop in Brixton. Interesting. So when we look at the attitude of the government with the attitude of other schemes, we see that complete difference. And what we hope to be doing in all our rallies for the next 6 months to a year is to draw on those differences and to challenge the government in the way that they're dealing with blood, plasma, HIV, the way they're dealing with post office, and the way they're dealing with the Windrush scandal. Clearly, there are differences. There is no justice. It's also good to mention that Colin McFarlane video, which is out in the public domain, to highlight that Windrush is not over. And the public don't really know that Windrush is not over. The public doesn't know that people are still suffering intergeneration of trauma, intergeneration are suffering, not just in the UK, but those outside the UK. We've always challenged the government to say, what are you doing to get information out to the rest of the Commonwealth countries? The Home Office on their website they have 65 countries affected by Windrush. We always ask the question, what are you doing to get information out to those 65 countries? We were told by the Home Office that they tried to get information out through the embassies and through the various offices, and they weren't getting the cooperation, so we didn't bother to go any further. What we do know that Jamaica, when Professor Martin Livermore visited Jamaica last year, we do know that some changes took place because he reported back to us that now through the Jamaica Library Service, people can actually get information. They can go to the library service and they can access the Home Office website and get information. What we don't know is how many people have done that to date since June of last year. But as far as he knows, that system is now in place to deal with those different parishes in Jamaica. And when we spoke to Professor Livermore in Brixton a few weeks ago, he did say that and encouraged that template for the library service in Jamaica can be used for any other country, whether that would be in the Caribbean or in Africa or in India, right? That template can be used so that people can have a place to go to get information and also have access to the internet in order to get the appropriate forms, etc. Yeah? And we've been pushing the Home Office to say, there you are, why don't you adopt that template? We don't know what they're doing, but they've been told they could do that. So currently, we're still campaigning for improvement to the scheme. The scheme that we have, even though it's not fit for purpose, there has been some changes. The most recent change we had was around pension. We also had changes which relate with regards to people who were outside the UK, had indefinite leave to remain, and they lost that right. There is still conversation with the Home Office around other aspects of the scheme that need improvement. We have regular conversation with the independent advisor to the scheme. We bring different issues and suggestions and recommendations that he can take forward to try and get the Home Office to improve. But still, it sits within the Home Office. We don't expect much change under this current government because we know that election is coming within a matter of months. And we also know that they've shown no real interest in addressing Windrush. It was mentioned 5 Home Secretaries since the scandal. And of course, we are currently, even with the Post Office scandal, we've seen how quickly that the Prime Minister responded. It was also mentioned yesterday in the Lords that the payment, the initial quick payment for the Post Office scandal, 70,000 immediately, And then following that, for those who were put in prison, 600,000. We don't see anything in comparison to Windrush. We see an initial payment of 10,000 offer. The maximum payment received, and it was mentioned yesterday, the 120,000. There's never been a $250,000 payment or a $500,000 payment. Yeah. But they keep saying, oh, you know, there is no limit on your compensation. But the reality is there is limit because they're still controlling. We were told the number of applications that's been rejected, the number of applications that draw a nil. And the reason for that, because the Home Office is the one administering and making those decisions. Yeah. And so the report from Age UK and other places, it was mentioned yesterday, the work that London University have done around, you know, an independent scheme. So all the organizations and campaigners been saying the same thing: remove it from the Home Office. It was even suggested yesterday in the Lords that it may sit in the business sector rather than the Home Office, because the business sector is a sector dealing with the post office scandal. So even that conversation is better than where it is at the moment. So 5 years on, almost 6, it was also mentioned how many people have died not getting their compensation. And I made a note. So as far as we know, this was the figure given, 53 people have died without compensation. 2,000 claims. And again, I make this point, the Home Office claim they've come down from 18 months to 4 months in processing your application from the time you start to receiving your money. And we know that is not true. It is a lie, but they're still putting this information out. 2,000 zero claim. That was a figure mentioned yesterday in the Lords. 2,000 zero, nothing. So you put your application in, you get nothing. Although there are no cap, what we've seen that there is a cap because the maximum is 120,000. So there is a cap. Contradiction again, no cap. 14 separate category of claim. And it was re-emphasized that the changes that need to take place in order for the Windrush generation to get justice, they highlight some key changes that need to take place. One, legal aid. We've been saying this for the last 3 years. That was re-emphasized again in the Lords. Legal aid. Another figure that was given, January 2024. So this is the latest data from the Home Office. 1,932 claimants. What happened to the 50,000 at the start of the claim that Amelia Gentleman spoke about in The Guardian? We also know that many people are scared to come forward and identify themselves because they have seen the way the Home Office have dealt with people with deportation. They don't want to identify themselves. I'm a Windrush person. When I have conversation with individual, they always, I can't trust. They say, we can't trust the Home Office. That's a fact. Okay? So people reluctant to come forward. People are dying before getting their claim. Descendants don't realize that the impact of their grandparents and their parents will have a direct impact on themselves in terms of their status. Many people don't know that their grandparents did not have a status. They did not actually rectify their status. Subsequently, that will have a continual impact on the next generation of descendants. So the campaign that Justice for Windrush Generation been running is to highlight the injustice of the scheme. And over the last 2 years or so, we've had a number of conversations in Parliament with different MPs, because we try to do a cross-party rally. Our next rally on the 20th of March is MP from Scotland, SNP, from Aberdeen North. So we are reaching out to different MPs. I'll be reaching out to the Welsh MPs also to sponsor, because each of our events, we want a sponsor to sponsor the event, to book the room, and to engage with us about the issues that we are experiencing and what can they do to take our message directly back to government or to their party. That's the reason why we have these conversations and these rallies. We cannot do it on our own. We've joined forces with Justice for Windrush, with the 4, which is Colin McFarlane, to get that message out. The post office scandal only became a priority following the TV drama of Mr. Bates versus the post office. If there was no TV drama, none of us would be any wiser. Everything would be quiet. Now, I say to myself, if there was a Windrush TV drama, will it produce the same result? So what we have is not a full drama, but we have Colin McFarlane video out there in the public domain, and we should share that as far as we can to get that message out to people. The British people still don't understand and know that Windrush is not over. They don't know that thousands of people are trapped outside the UK, cannot come back to the UK and join their family. They don't know that many people, we don't know the numbers that have died in the Commonwealth countries. We haven't got that information. The 53 is the ones from the UK we know about. So the message to government is we are not treated equal to other scheme. And it was said yesterday in the Lords, the difference. We are not treated, the Windrush generation is not treated the same as the Horizon scandal post office. Okay? And it is clear the difference is color of skin. There's no difference. Just for Black and brown people, it is different. So the message for us, really, we will continue to campaign to get justice. Unfortunately, many people will die without getting the justice. And sadly, that claim will then go to the children and the descendant of that individual to process that claim. And we call that the deceased estate claim. Yeah? So people still have the opportunity to get something, but we don't really want people to die.
No.
We want people to get what they deserve before they die. If you get a chance to have a look at the full video at Parliament TV, you will see the debates yesterday. You will see different lords contributing to that debate, and you will see the clergy and other people contributing to that debate. And the agreement at the end of that, what Baroness Benjamin said, she don't want to come back to the Lords again with this. She's done it about 3 or 4 times. She don't want to come back and do it again. It needs to be resolved. And that's how it was left. It needs to be resolved. Action needs to be taken. And we hope in the next few weeks or months that some responses will come out of this conversation. But I wouldn't hold my breath because, of course, the Conservative Party, their days are numbered in relation to the next general election. So what we've been doing in January, we engage with the Windrush Manifesto. And the purpose of that was to make sure that all the political parties are aware of Windrush is still a high priority and should be included in their manifesto. So each of the political party was written to: the Greens, the Conservative, the Labour, the Independents, the Welsh. They were all written to SNP with a letter and asking them to attend the event in January 24th. And they did not attend the event. The Green attended the event. Nobody from the Conservative Party, nobody from the Labour. However, I did get responses from Labour. They couldn't attend. From the Yvette Cooper, who is the opposition. But what I've done over the last 6 months is to continue to communicate with Yvette Cooper and with Keir Starmer in relation to the work we're doing, so that they are aware that this issue needs to be addressed. I attended the conference, TUC conference last year in Liverpool, and the motion was carried. The Windrush motion was carried, and we will hope that that motion will spark the final drafting of the manifesto, which I know each of the parties are now working their own manifesto. We could have an election in May, or we could have it in the autumn. So let's keep challenging whatever opportunity we get to say something about this issue, whether to our MPs in writing and say, you know, we're concerned that the government is not dealing with Windrush. We're concerned, even though we're not directly effective, we can still raise our concern as to the way that the government has dealt with the Windrush generation and descendants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Garrick. That was just amazing. And Garrick, to think back, well, it's years now we've been going with Black History Conversations, and the summer when we took a break and used the sessions just to have an opportunity to support you and June Elizabeth were involved, Roland and others too. And the work that you've had to put in over this time and the knowledge that you've got, the insight is just incredible. So I just thank you very much. And just to say that this recording is being made on the 1st of March 2024. So if somebody's looking at this in the future, that's a really good summary of where things have been at and the endless frustration of not being able to get these claims wrapped up.
Just to say something, and while Vivian is here, I think this is quite important. So, we always ask a question about what our own government is doing. Yes. And my government is out there in Jamaica. What are we doing? We have a High Commissioner here in London. I have written twice to the High Commissioner. There is information on their website which is out of date. That was information at the start of the scandal of 2018. And I challenge the information there that it's out of date. It needs to be updated. But also, what we find frustrating is that Jamaica continued to accept deportees. Other countries don't do it. And I don't know if there's any way that, that can be challenged. And also what I don't see is the Jamaica government defending the Windrush generation, standing up for the Windrush generation. It was mentioned yesterday that people who were deported to the Caribbean and to Jamaica end up dying or getting no assistance at all, living on the street because there was no support for them. And my understanding was there was a sum of money, and I read it before it happened. Yeah, the British government gave the Jamaican government a sum of money per individual. When they arrive in Jamaica, they will have some money to set themselves up and to somewhere to live. And we have seen, Roland, myself, we've seen video of people living on the street, got nowhere to go and begging, who were living in England before, that been deported. And I asked the question, what is our government doing?
It's a very good point, Garrick. And Vivian, I can see you're making notes there. I don't know if you want to respond now, or Vivian can't hear you.
Because I'm high challenged, I hasten to start. I see Natalie looking at her.
Okay.
But first of all is to thank you for being back with us. And we continue to pray for your speedy recovery. And as I said last week, to thank Garrick for doing a wonderful job last week, although we missed you, Liz. We thank Garrick, and I said last week that a deputy is essential. There's a calypso by that. But to thank most sincerely Garrick for this presentation, because it just took me back to the early 1900s, and it sadly for me, it was like the debate about the abolition of slavery. We are going around the mulberry bush. And we need to see that. You're going to have 1 million meetings. I just, while we were here, made a call to the National Library. That is not off the ground. I'm hearing that money was given to people. This is perhaps more serious than I thought. And one tangential to the discussion is that when those people left for England, their children were left with their grandparents. My mother had to take care of my own brother's children, sister's children, etc. And what, has anyone ever done any study on those children? What happened to them? And some of them when they joined their parents in England, all hell broke loose because they were unwelcome in this society. It is such a grave situation that where do we go from here?
Those children you referred to, Vivian, those children, a lot has been written about the Barrel children left behind, you know, and
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Barrel is for America. The Jamaican children got parcels.
parcel.
The parcels arrived in November each year.
Yes, yes.
And all the pants were gray.
Yes.
The pants were gray. And they sent a thing called chenille bedspread.
Gosh. Yes, it's the I don't know whether anything, Garrick, has been done in relation to the left behind children and the issues with Windrush. I mean, it's so complex, as Vivian says, and we have done some exploration and the different sessions of Black History Conversations about the left behind children. Makapi Selassie did some research for us, and yourself, Abubaga, you talked about your own family's experience of.
That's right. Yeah, Liz.
over
You got a
the
good
years.
memory. Got a good memory, you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know is the answer to that, and maybe that's something that can be put on the list of things to look at. June Elizabeth, you wanted to say something, so if
Yes,
you could
thank
come
you
on.
very much, Gareth. And as
Margaret, we can come back to you.
yeah, thank you very much, Gareth, for your presentation. As you know, I've been supporting the Windrush generation from 1980, and in 2020, I was one of the 41 nationwide Windrush Home Office ambassadors to promote the scheme. I saw the gaps in the service and I took on caseloads. I've taken on many caseloads and I've got many people compensation internationally. But I had a meeting with the head of Home Office face to face on Monday night because the Windrush National Organisation, which I belong to, came to Northampton with the Home Office on Tuesday to present the schemes and the compensation scheme and the compensation status. Now, I had a one-to-one with him to show him that not only he doesn't like when I say it depends which side of the bed the caseworker gets out of, depending on what compensation the client gets. He doesn't like me saying that. I've said it a couple of times, and I've now evidenced it. And both clients have allowed me to use their cases as case studies. So the bottom line is, you've got two people. They're both Jamaicans, okay? And they both got £70,000 compensation. I mean, they were happy with that. Well, one was happy with that. Originally, the first person got 40,000. And then after I'd made an appeal, they got 70,000. So I've got a meeting with them next week, because even though he took the 70,000, it wasn't the right amount of money. So I said to him, and then it's like, you can see that I find that they're not tuned in to what we're tuned into. I said, how can you have two people that get the same money and one of them was not allowed to work for 6 years and one was not allowed to work for 20 years? The one with 6 years didn't have any paperwork, plus he had a fire, right? I know everybody's got a different situation, but in them 6 years that he couldn't work, he got Social Security unemployment benefit. But the one who couldn't work for 20 years, a Jamaican, he worked all his life until he was in his 40s, and the Secretary of State signed a paper that he shouldn't be in the country. And he came here when he was 9. But in the 20 years, he did not get no social security money because the Secretary of State said he's entitled to nil. I've got all the evidence. So I said, how can you give someone who suffered for 6 years and got benefits the same as somebody who suffered for 20 years and got no benefit? Isn't that easy mathematics that you're not paying out the right amount of money? So I have this email here that was written on the 27th of November, and Sir Cliff has edited it, but I told him it's no good sending them anything over the festive because everybody's on holiday. And I said, in the new year, so they're waiting on this. So he said he's waiting on this email. I told him it face to face. So this email is going to tell them to look at the evidence that I gave them. So now when somebody signs for their award, that's it. You can't come back once you get your money. So I showed him that what we done, we fought for the cost of living. I don't know if you know what the cost of living is. So if, say, like you're my sister, Liz, yeah? And I'm the main claimant, the Windrush primary claimant. You are the close family, yeah? So you spent maybe 15, 16,000 pounds so I didn't lose my house, yeah? You supported me. Doesn't matter how long you supported me, you get 20,000 now. So if you supported me for 1 year, you get 20,000. If you supported me for 20 years, you get 20,000. That's still not right, but never mind. It's better than what it was before. So now, what's happened? You've not really got 20,000 because you spent 17,000 helping me. So you only got 3,000. That's not compensation. That's irritation money. So now they've brought out a cost of living, right? So you can show that you paid out this money, right? So you get back that 17 grand on top of your 20. But we had to fight for that. Me and Glenda Caesar, she was the main runner with that. So everything, just like what Dr. Gentleman from Jamaica that's on the platform. I'm getting like you now, Liz.
Oh, Vivian Crawford.
Dr. Vivian said it reminds him of 1900 when they were fighting for abolition and just going around in a circle, right? I can categorically say, and when I meet with them on Thursday, I can categorically say what the minister said is completely inaccurate. They're not getting paid in 4 months. I've got clients that have been waiting nearly a year now, but I've been in touch with them and they said they're coming back. So there's nothing called 4 months. In 4 months, you're lucky when you put your application that they acknowledge it. So to close, I said to the Home Office, Nigel, I said, the thing is, you've gone backwards. Because in 2020, the Windrush ambassadors who are on the ground, we're the roots, we're the connection from like what Gareth and Roland are as well, from the roots to the Home Office. We're the bridge. And it was found out that some people have applied from 2019 and we're in 2020 and they haven't heard anything. They don't know if you've got it or you've not got it. They ring up, you say someone's going to ring them, they don't get no reply. So Priti Patel said, and it was like about the 14th of December 2020, she said, any claims from now that go into the Home Office, the date it is sent in 6 weeks, the Home Office has got to give acknowledgement. And if it's negative, they say so, and the reason why. If it's positive, they offer them a £10,000 preliminary award while they sort it out, right? So now we're in 2024, but 2023, right, and 2022, they were saying, well, in 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, we might acknowledge we've received it. Then we in another few months, we'll let you know if you're entitled to it. So I said, if you only add, say, 10 caseworkers in 2020, and you could let us know in 6 weeks. Now, with all the hard work that the advocates on the ground have done, you've got lots of caseworkers in all different departments, got more caseworkers. So therefore, the time shouldn't be longer. It shouldn't be longer, right? So to me, I can say, because I work Windrush every day, I work helping people get their status and their compensation. I got somebody their compensation in Catford and Brixton 3 weeks ago. Now,
And Elizabeth,
they're not paying the right amount of money neither. Sorry?
Can we just confirm that you're doing all of this on a voluntary basis?
Yes, I am, but I must admit now that our project are paying like so that I don't run out of ink and paper. They're giving me some expenses, but from 1980, I've done it on my own expense.
Really, you're doing this in your own time.
Yes,
Yeah.
all of us, and this is factual. All of us, the work we're doing, we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
and in fact, we're doing the work that the Home Office ought to be doing.
Exactly.
I mean, what you're doing is so significant, and it's just fantastic. But it shouldn't be that case. But
No,
it's
right.
no.
Like
Right,
I say to them,
Applebagger, you've been waiting for quite a while now. So would you like to come in, Applebagger?
Yes, hold on one sec. Let me just get my glasses on. I've just taken a few notes.
Okay.
Garrick, thanks for the presentation. I really, really appreciated it. And as a historian, looking at it from a sociological and a psychological perspective, I began to realize not just the significance of trying to keep this alive, but to identify and highlight a lot of the problems that we're facing, not just those who came from the Caribbean, who are the Windrush that come here, but the ripple effects it has on those children and grandchildren who are still here. Now, I was working on the Windrush compensation scheme with the Home Office between 2020 and 2021. And we were just coming out of the coronavirus period at the time. And we were doing it in Wales, in Cardiff, in the capital city in Wales. And when I was like a consultant, a project worker working on this, and one of the issues that I found working was that there was a lack of trust coming from the Caribbean elders, to the Home Office. Now I had to do what do you call it, monthly reports. And every time I asked for particular advice, in order how I can try to get more and more of them, they wasn't giving me any additional information on how to help me. And it seemed like they were complaining that there was no one signing up from Wales on the Windrush compensation scheme. And when we did have this one meeting, and I did mention in one of the meetings that it seems like it's a conflict of interest, because what's happening, you're still detaining and deporting people, as a Home Office, and at the same time, you're saying you're going to compensate people. So it's like it's a contradiction. You're dealing with people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. They're not getting it. And I'm saying what you also got to understand is that they're not technologically savvy. So I can end up having Zoom meetings and things like that, because many of them don't know how to use mobile phones, are not confident using mobile phones, or they don't have laptops or desktops, etc. So how can I get out to these people? And they look like they just wasn't understanding the deficits and deficiencies, within the Caribbean community, So my question, I really appreciate your presentation, but what my initial thing is what I wanted to bring to your attention is it going to be a possibility that an independent body is going to take over from the Home Office? Because I think this was where the barrier was for many of the elders that I spoke to who came from the Windrush generation, because they felt, well, look, if I give all this information over to you and I don't have the right papers, is this going to be a thing that they're going to deport me? And I'm trying to say to them, well, no, they promise you that's not the case. But they're saying, well, look, there's still detentions and there's still deportations taking place as we speak by people we know. Sometimes they're family members, sometimes they're friends of families or whatever the case may be. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is the ripple effects on those children and grandchildren who were born in this country. Because what I noticed when I was working between 2020 and 2021 was that they were deporting a lot of people back to Jamaica, especially, who were born in this country. So, sorry for going on, Garrick, but there was just a few things I could speak a bit about. I want to give other people a chance. So if you can
what
just
you've said, what you've said is all correct. And the fact of the matter is this, there's another area that often is not spoken about. So, what we try to do is to make sure people don't think Windrush is a Caribbean issue.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, the narrative that is out there on the BBC, they go back to the original ship and they interview people from the Caribbean, talk about calypso and cricket and all those things. What we try to do is to take the message to the rest of the world, to the Africans and to the Indian, the Southeast Asian people, to say, listen, Windrush is a global issue. It affects people from 65 countries. There's only 56 Commonwealth countries, but there are other British overseas territories, etc., been added to that list. 65 countries, not a Caribbean issue. And it is a difficult conversation because, Africans don't believe that they are Windrush because, they separate themselves. What we say to people, listen, if you came into the UK from that period, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when Britain was recruiting nurses for the NHS and doctors, etc., you're part of that generation. Now, I know the terminology is not, the right thing for them, but we try to let them understand that the Windrush period runs from 1948 up to 1988. So people who came, not even thinking that they're Windrush, they're part of that generation, second, third, fourth generation. And that is not an easy conversation to be had, you see, because, we've tested this out. We had a session in Liverpool back in November of last year, and it was just focusing on Africans only. Yeah. And we went out to the areas where Africans had their business to talk with them face to face and say, look, tomorrow we're having this event here in Crawford House. Yeah. Would you like to come? And every conversation was, oh, that's a Caribbean thing. Yeah. There was only one conversation, one Ghanaian gentleman who said to me, yes, I do understand. I do know about Windrush, right? He'd been following this story, so he knows a little bit more than the average person. But it's always a difficult conversation to have with people that is not from the Caribbean.
Excuse me, Garrett.
Totally right.
Me, sorry, Abu. Can I just come in a minute? Abu, I sometimes support the Garrick and Roland's platform.
Yeah.
And not last year, the year before, in October, we had a couple from Nigeria.
Yes.
The long and short of it, it was very complex. So I took that case on, and they took away his passport when he tried to renew it. He lives in Nigeria, works as a lawyer, but the bottom line was he was born in England, right? So, fast forward, for 2 years, he's been in exile because the passport officer in England decided to not renew his passport. They took away his passport. And in 2 months, I got back his passport, right? And as we speak, because he's also, a case study.
Yes.
As we speak, he is coming over next week I need to talk to you about it, Garrick, right? Because he's entitled to compensation. Because for 2 years, then he never had no citizenship. So I had to take his wife last week, the week before, to have a meeting. I was on Teams with the Home Office Windrush immigration gentleman, right? Because she couldn't let her husband know they'd refused him compensation at Christmas time. So when we had the meeting, she had circled 2 bits and she said, very contradicting, as you were saying, Abu, it says, if you apply from abroad, we will reimburse you your postage. And then in the next breath, you refuse my husband because he's applying from abroad. So the gentleman said, well, it's the 1973 Act, right? And so she said, yes. He said, the Commonwealth Act. He said, but my husband doesn't fit that criteria. He was born in Kent. So do you know what he told her? Well, yeah. So I said, so what are we going to do? Because who's going to pay the compensation, you or the passport office? He said, they will, but they've got to apply from England. She said, I'm buying my ticket. They're coming over. Look at that. Yeah. So they've changed the boundaries. And I'll just say,
there's no consistency. There's no consistency.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, right. I'm going to say we need to wrap up what we're doing now. I think if that's okay.
Yeah.
We could go on for the rest of the afternoon for some of you, for the rest of the morning for some, but it's very late at night for me over here in Australia.
Yeah,
I thank you all very much for coming. Apu, did you want to add something else? I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, just one other thing. I just wanted just to emphasize, about one of the meetings we did have with the Home Office back in 2021. I think it was around about February time, 2021, was the slogan or the identifier of Windrush, and speaking to people outside of the Caribbean experience and trying to convince them that they were part of this compensation scheme. And the thing which they said, well, look, this is the identifier which we want to use. And it's easier for us to use this identifier. And as consultants or project workers, etc., you have to do the best you can to convince them that they fall into this category. And so, because there was a lot of people I knew from from Arab communities, from Asian communities who fell into that category, but they just was not convinced with the Windrush compensation scheme title, So will that be a thing which will change if there is an independent body that takes over from the Home Office? Because I believe that's what needs to be done, because seems to be a conflict of interest. Home Office often are compensation schemes, and they were still detaining and deporting people.
Yeah.
Right, well, I'll let Garrick have the last word then. Okay, if that's
and you're absolutely right, because just this week a Jamaican been deported, age 27, been deported. But of course, that individual has a list of criminal activity, and there's been many people who did not have any criminality and been wrongly removed from the UK. And later on, they found that, they shouldn't have been removed, etc. So that is still going on. Ultimately, the aim is to get an independent scheme. Ultimately, that is our fight. We can try and do things around it, but if it stays with the Home Office, we will continue to experience these issues. So, independent is what we are fighting for. And what we're hoping at the next general election, and we change government, that we'll have a stronger fight to get independent scheme in place. So let's keep pushing for independent scheme. But in the meantime, we still have to follow and use the scheme we have.
Yeah.
And what we say to people, just check the list against the 65 country. If your country is listed there, then talk to somebody. Talk to one of us. We have regular Zoom session twice a month, second and last Sunday of the month. when we physically have those conversations about who's eligible to apply to the scheme, and we help people to identify, eligibility. Then we have advocacy to help the person with the application. Yeah, that's advocacy to help them fill the forms in. So there is help out there, and these platforms are hybrid platform, which means anyone can join from any part of the world and involve into that conversation. So, Abdul reach out to people and says, listen, do you know that there is a Sunday chat, a regular Sunday chat twice a month, and where to find that? Eventbrite. Everything we do is on the Eventbrite platform, both Parliament and Sunday chat, Eventbrite.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you very much, Garrick. You passed on information there, and also the previous slide that I just put up. So Daisy, the previous slide that I just put up. Can't get the right thing here at all. I'm so sorry. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
This one.
Yes.
Shows that this is where you can get help and to
This
pass
is
on
it.
to
So
the
this
folks.
one is very much helping the client with their application, and if they don't understand, we help them to understand. Do you have a claim, right? Because that's the thing. Do you have a claim? And we make it easier because somebody will assist you all the way through. That's called advocacy.
Yeah, Garrett, only Jamaica's got a free number now. In Jamaica, you can ring 0800 free straight to the Home
excellent.
Office.
Good.
I confirmed that on Monday with Ed.
Very good. We will promote
Wonderful.
that. Yeah, that's
so
good.
It's great to know you're working together as a team, and you can sort that out together. Just to reinforce the fact that Age Concern put out this very good report. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. That came out this week.
They are so Age Concern, Liz. They will be presenting this report on the 20th of March in Parliament. So the author of the report is invited to come and speak to us on the 20th. Yeah.
Excellent. So just to say, and it was relevant. Dr. Vivian Crawford pointed out that there are resonances of the days of emancipation, the injustice that is being meted out by the British government is just unbelievable. And looking from the other side of the planet, it's just amazing. It's just unforgivable. So just to say that Black History Conversations acknowledges the injustice of the actions taken by the British and other European countries that invaded and took possession of the islands in the Caribbean Sea, as well as the continents of North and South America. That's one of the reasons why we've still got this problem in issue today. If all of this hadn't happened, we'd be in a different world. In addition, we also recognise the exploitation of the great continents of Africa, Asia, Australia, and many other parts of the world during those centuries of colonisation and ongoing exploitation. And we acknowledge that this has resulted in the destruction and destabilisation of so many nations, peoples, and cultures. And we also acknowledge the challenges that people who have different coloured skins from white people are still experiencing challenges and difficulties which can just be put down to straightforward institutional racism, and that's not acceptable. June Elizabeth White-Smith-Gurry, thank you very much indeed for reminding me that I needed to come in and also add this element to our Black History conversation. Now, next week will be interesting. We've got Alex Renton, the author of Blood Legacy, the very interesting story of how he researched his family's connections with the slave trade and slave ownership in Jamaica and another Caribbean island. But he's been working on the Church of England compensation scheme, which is going to be announced. Now, this is the compensation scheme. This is the reparation scheme, not compensation, reparation scheme, which apparently isn't being called reparation, but something else. And it's just, I mean, well, good that we're getting on and doing something about all these things, but it's all coming together kind of at the same time. So that'll be really interesting to hear about his perspective as how what one would have thought of as a prestigious organisation, but now that in the past it wasn't the case. The Church of England abused many people over the time of their history in relation to the slave trade. So that'll be an interesting session. We've also got historical, the website Historical Roots. We're going to find out about that, and we're also going to be finding out a little bit more about our website, but we'll keep the website till next week because we've taken quite a long time now. So I thank all of you for your time. Thank you, Ivor, for joining us in Jamaica, Penance, Jamaica. Thank you, Dr. William Crawford, as ever, for joining us. I do appreciate it. It's been especially lovely to have Natalie Fagan-Brown listening in. Applebagger, you've been able to make some very valid contributions. Joan, thank you for being with us again. And to those campaigners for Windrush, Roland's listening in. June Elizabeth, thank you for your contributions. And Garrick, I can't thank you enough for putting together that long but very clear explanation as to where we're at the moment. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you so much.
We'll see you tomorrow, Liz. Okay, 2 o'clock tomorrow. So get some rest now.
2 o'clock tomorrow. It's the North Wales Jamaica
Thank
Society.
you, Liz. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
the very best.
All right, take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks for a great
Okay.
talk. See you next
Bye.
week. Cheers and yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.